Okay, as promised, I'm going to go through the real basics of dimensioning in the full knowledge that there are a lot of great tools out there to do it, but that you do need to learn how to use a little bit of it in AutoCAD. Remember, I'm going to pay particular attention to using the toolbar here for it, and to mention typically to the dimension styles and the layering. Remembering that you can control a lot later by changing the properties of anything, like anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have a right click in any toolbar. I have the layers toolbar up, and I remember that I have things on object, and then potentially I put some things on dimension. First and foremost, remember I'm also going to bring up the styles toolbar. The styles toolbar is how you keep track of your text style, your dimension style, your table style, which I'm not into, and then your multi-leader style. In terms of, that's how leaders work pretty well with multi-leader. There are other things like multi-line style. I mentioned in class style, M-line style, or M-line, M style, or M-line, and style. Here, you can question mark here. You got all kinds of multi-line styles, so you want to think about that. But multi-line lets you put lines in like that. So there's different styles. The ones that are on the toolbar are text, dimension, table, and multi-line. I'm going to start with text. The one thing to remember, and about the only thing to remember about text, is if you are not using annotation, which you have covered in class, that you want this height to be 0. That's about it. You can pick anything you want. If you are using something that's going to be annotative, then you want to give it a text height. So this one dimension is set here. That's going to set to a certain particular height. You set the current one, and then remember dimension styles. The one thing you most want to be concerned with, again, is in the Fit tab. This is the one that will adjust most everything. Alright. However, if you are wanting to do dimensioning in architectural work, the units format needs to be in architectural, not just the unit of the drawing. That's one thing that's important. You got round offs, you got all kinds of settings with zero suppression, all kinds of different things. You can suppress the beginning, you can suppress the ending, you can put alternative units in there. For instance, you want to put in millimeters as well, right? You might want to go alternative units, so you might allow primary units and then alternate units to be millimeters, etc. All kinds of different things to change the front and the back, but you can do it by using different styles. So for instance here, you want to get a good style here, and then you might want to go through the standard style, and you might want to go ahead and make a new one. Alright, and if you think about this, we have different styles. We have standard. We're going to make a new, and we're going to say Patak 1. Start with standard, used for all dimensions, and maybe this style I'm going to use just for radius dimensions. So I might want to have different things here, as I said here, Patak 1. Maybe for radiuses, for some reason, I might want to change those radiuses to be decimal. I don't know why I would do that, but now all of a sudden I have, depending on what kind of dimensioning I'm using, I've got things set. So I'm going to go ahead and set current. You notice that radial here, that was going to be basically a substandard. I'm going to hit close here. I'm going to draft a couple more on the right layer and show you the biggest, kind of the one thing I think you all need to do amongst everything else, is learn the difference first off between an aligned dimension and a horizontal or vertical one. You got arc length, you got ordinates, you got radius, etc. But then especially the difference between, first trying the quick dimension, but the difference between a baseline dimension off of a baseline and a continue dimension. That's the big one, I think, of anyone that's kind of going to be going with the basics besides all the setting and the like. And I'll be looking and continuing as I look at different programs to put different dimensioning stuff out here, but I'm going to go ahead and draft in a couple more things on object. And I'll be also talking about some handouts in terms of the primacy of what goes where, what can be broken, where do dimension lines go, what has preference. But I'm going to go ahead and dimensional on the bottom here with original. I'm going to put an original dimension in, either aligned or horizontal, and then I'll do the bottom by doing baseline and the top by doing continue. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you that for the most part, if you've got one line, you could go ahead and just grab the line. So I just got going like that. I just grabbed the line. If you remember, it comes in odd. First, why it's odd is because you should be on the correct layer. And then also that whole idea of the dim style. Dim style, because you're in architectural, you're probably off by a factor of 12, and so you can modify, perhaps fit maybe the 12. Maybe 12 will work. It's a good guess. It's not always correct if you're going into architectural, but there you have it. And so along the bottom here, I said I would do a baseline. And so once I've started that, I can go ahead and go with baseline. And what it's going to do, it's going to remember my last one, but it also is remembering if you see what layer I'm on. So let's get the layer set. You want to make sure that you're kind of dimensioning on the right layer. And we're going to go ahead and go with baseline. It's going to remember the last one you did. And then again, so just in that, you see how the baseline command works. You're going to see there's some other places here that you can change your dimension updates and some of these other things in terms of jogs, etc. Center marks. I'm going to go ahead show you a center mark. That's a useful one because it just is one of those things that you might want to adjust later. Have a separate dimension style for center mark. And now I'm just going to go ahead and do, once again, a horizontal from the endpoint here to the endpoint there, and you see that in this case, instead of continuing with a continue, with the baseline, I'm going to do a continue, and at that point it remembers my last one. I go to there, I go to there, and I've got a continue dimension. Going up, obviously, dimension lines can go over, my recollection, over the object line. So we're going to go ahead and dimension going up here some of these general dimensions on the left side the same way. I'm going to do it first by doing a vertical, and I'm going to, this time, I'm going to just go in, because I don't want to do that whole dimension to start. I'm going to go from an endpoint there. And notice I have to do, in this case, the vertical, because the line would give me something odd there. So I've kind of got a base set there, and I'm going to go and continue with the baseline here. So I'm going to do the baseline. Right, in this case, the next logical thing to do probably would be the center, and then the endpoint, and then the endpoint. Now, with this, sometimes especially, you see one of the variables that's really important is the gap, the text size, and everything else. Something that usually can make things work pretty nicely, so you don't want to necessarily get going and doing this, but you see that these texts are all reading straight up. Architecturally, very often you turn your stuff on the side, so I'm going to go ahead and show you one of the changes you would make in dimension style. So you remember, go to dimension style here, and basically you can go to modify, and one of the kind of key things is this, the text align with the dimension line. That usually makes it look pretty nice. Set current, close. It's going to update all of your dimensions that have that dimension style, whether it's stacked, whatever else. Well, I'm going to point this out now. When you do this, things stay tied together. So if you then do use the stretch command, S-T-R-E-T-C-H, and you will go across things here like this, and you do something and stretch it out, it does update the dimensions. So that ability to make them dynamic and not lose the associativity of it is a kind of important thing in dimensioning. All right, remembering the layers are important. And we'll see the radius and the jogged and some of these others going ahead and doing a diameter a particular way. If you remember now there, that's kind of lined up a certain way. Maybe that one would like to be a different dimension style. So you could take that one, right click. One of your dimension style would be, instead of standard, you might try the radial, close, and you might or might not change it. So this kind of sense here, the other thing we finally realized is that any dimension just has a lot of properties to it. So any particular dimension, you can change some of these ideas of what the arrow in the beginning or end looks like. So I'll just go and use an example here. Actually, architecturally, that's really a much better look to use architecturally. Those of you who are in renewable, that kind of slash is much nicer, much better. So you can do it individually here, oblique. Okay, so that kind of sense of being able to change a particular one, and especially the suffix and the override. If you want to put a suffix in here individually, that's an important number. So you can see generally there's a lot that can be done in dimensions, but we'll do a couple more, but that's about a big highlight there. Thanks for listening.